Hi, it's the Constant Angler here. I'd like to talk to you today about what I do when I'm getting bites but I'm not hooking fish. The little things I can change to maybe get that hook point in that fish's mouth. So if you see in front of you here, I have a 5-inch Senko weedless rigged on an EWG hook. The other day I was getting bites on this, so the worm was obviously attracting the fish. But as you'll have seen in my last wrasse fishing video, Tricky January Wrasse, they just weren't getting it in their mouths for me to be able to hook them. Now, first off, I was using a Jika rig, which there's not a lot of sensitivity on that. As soon as they pick the bait up, they feel the weight. So I decided to go to a Texas rig. With a Texas rig, your line runs through the weight, so there's more sensitivity, less resistance to the fish. The hope was to get that bait in that fish's mouth without them noticing that little bit further, so that I could hook them. It worked to a degree, but I still wasn't happy. So I decided that, maybe my bait's too big. Maybe they're biting the end of the bait, and when I looked, they weren't biting where my hook point was. So what was the first thing I'd do about that then? Well, if you can see here at the moment, my hook point's all the way up there on the bait. It's not too bad, but I would like it further back. So I could increase my hook size, but the fish I was fishing for on the day, wrasse, they haven't got big mouths. You start using too big of hooks. I mean, this is a size 2.0 EWG. Then it's not going to fit in their mouths as easily, so it's counterproductive to what you're trying to do. So the first thing I did was shorten the bait. So you can tear it off like I've just done there. You can bite it off. They're nice and salty if you need a bit of soap. And then re-rigged it straight on the EWG hook, as we always do. Just Texas rig it and exposed it. That helped, but I still wasn't happy. They were still proving tricky. I felt I was getting closer. So what do you do when you've gone from there? Well, one of the first things you can do after this is to slow down. Slowing down your retrieve, especially with wrasse fishing or any type of fish, to be honest, gives them longer to look at it, longer to decide how to go at it. That can work. Equally, some days you don't want them to have such a good look at it. Maybe they are being a bit timid and they're not really committing to it. So increasing the speed can do the same thing. Or increasing the pauses in between your retrieve is a very important thing with wrasse. In the winter especially, longer pauses generally equals more fish. So we've changed our rig, we shortened the bait, we've changed our retrieves, we slowed down, sped up. We're still not really getting it right. The next thing I would do then is change my bait. I might change the colour of my bait. As you can see here, I've got a luminous chartreuse bait. That might be the trick on the day. I might change the sort of bait. Maybe they want something more realistic, like this crab imitation, or they might want something with a different action, so like this Berkeley crawl bait, or this red grub bait. So you've changed the action, you've changed the color. You're still not really getting any further, but you knew you were getting bites on this one, didn't you? So maybe it's not the action, it's just the way they're feeding on the day. So where do we go from there? Well, as I've sort of already said, you can scale down your bait. So go to a smaller bait. Maybe go to a smaller hook. What I found on the day worked was to change the type of hook. Now I was fishing for wrasse and they struggle to get these baits in their mouth sometimes. So I switched to a weedless straight shanked worm hook. As you can see, the difference between the wide gape, which obviously has a wider gape, and the straight shank hook, it's a lot slimmer. That enabled it to get into their mouths on the day, whereas the wide gape was struggling to go in there. It helped with the smaller bait, smaller hook, wide gape hook, but there was still a difference there, and just these little things some days make a difference. So we've scaled down, we're improving, but we still think, you know, what else could I do? Here's another little trick. If you think they're just not hitting the bait in the right place, you can do what's hot spotting, called hot spotting. Now here I have Spike It Dip and Glow in a chartreuse colour and a shrimp flavour. Sometimes changing the flavour can make them hold it in their mouths for longer, or as I'm doing here, hopefully you can see this, it's a dark bait and I'm putting some chartreuse colouring around, and also at the same time with this Spike It, around the hook point. Now hopefully that's going to come out on film and show up, but it might not actually. Anyway, let's put a bit more on. You can put as much on as you like, but keep it around the hook point. So there's another alternative. Maybe our baits are a bit tough. You might want to lubricate your lure where the hook point goes through. Some soft plastics aren't quite as soft as they could be. Now if you look at this here, hopefully you'll be able to see that. This is basically a pot of Vaseline I bought, and I've added some scent to it. In this case it's squid, and I've added some luminous boilie dye, what the carp anglers use. And what I've done there now is I've hot spotted my hook point. I put attractant around that hook point, a squid flavour, and I've also lubricated around the hook. So this is going to open up and expose the gape more on the bait. See how freely that moves now? I know you bass anglers might want to have a think about this with some of your Senkos, large Senkos you use, Albi snacks, things like that. Really helps. So we've done quite a lot there, haven't we? We've flavoured our bait. Talking of flavours, I sometimes do this, my magic potion. I have a lot of baits in this tub soaking in a flavour that I've made up, various baits, and I just leave them in there, and on tricky days I go to that box and pull it out. We've changed the type of bait, we've changed the colour of bait, we've changed the flavour, we've changed the rig. What else can we do? It's still not working as well as we want. Well, we can change the hooking arrangement. We can go from an EWG hook to a straight shank hook. Now, I showed you in my last video, the Tricky January Wrasse video, how I hook using a straight shank hook. Well, what we're trying to achieve is a Texas rig presentation, but with a straight shank hook. To do that, we need to go in at an angle like this. So we go in at an angle. There we go. We turn it as usual, pull it into the bait, the eye of the hook. We then get the look at the angle that it's going to go. We want it to go through the bait. I want something like that, and we put it into the bait as such. Now I come through too far forward there, so we just, there you go, and you can see that's barely exposing the hook point. But what happens here is when you pull on your line, this hook point has less plastic to go through, and it goes up and into the top of the mouth more because the angle is being pulled at. It's not as in the EWG hooks. You're pulling here and it's already exposed. It's pulling more into the bait rather than out of the bait. We're relying on the fish to collapse this here and expose the gape to hook. It's just a more aggressive hooking presentation. again, it's as you saw on the day. I mean, unfortunately, I think I lost it on the day, didn't I? And that's why I went to this arrangement, because my hands were freezing and I didn't want to tie it up and mess around again. But as you know, it's obvious it's more aggressive hooking arrangement. So that's another good idea. Something I've learned recently, which involves the use of a ballpoint pen, and this comes off the American bass circuit. If we can show you with one of these here, is a way they use to expose more of the gape of the hook. So if I did it on this one here, actually no, we'll go back to this. What you're doing is you're looking to increase the gape around this hook point area here. So I can see where that is at the moment. I'm going to unhook that, take that hook out a moment, and what I'm going to do here now is get this ballpoint pen, which I've taken the inner out of, so you've just got your whole, your cylinder there really, you're outside, and I'm going to put it halfway down the side of the bait, put my thumb opposite it and push through all the way. And basically what I'm doing is removing a bit of the plastic. So you can see there now, I haven't got so far I've broken the bait. So when I re-hook this bait now, let's see, just put it back on as I had it before, if I've done it right. The bend of your hook is going to go straight up through that portion of the bait that is missing. You can expose it as normal. So there we go. Now this has the advantage of when the fish bites, boom, it exposes a lot more of the hook point. I haven't used this yet. It was something I thought I'd show you out of interest that I discovered on somebody else's channel. Chap called David Dudley, I think, an American bass angler. I can see the advantages of that, but I can also see the disadvantages. I mean, if we're talking wrasse fishing, they've got teeth, so they're probably going to bite that off easier. If you're talking fish without teeth, then yeah, I'm happy enough doing that. But apparently this is something that they do on the American bass circuit. So play around with it a bit. It might suit thicker Senkos where you are just left with, say this, you are left with more material there anyway, and your smaller baits, it might not suit as much. So there we go. I hope that's helped you in some way. Maybe give you pause for thought. I will show all these things actually being used on the bank, as I did in my last video, showed a few of these things. And thanks for watching.